We're now on the top of Daf Zayin Amid Beis. So why do we blow the shofar twice? We blow the shofar what's called Tkiyos L'Miyushav before the Musaf service, and we blow a second time during the course of the Musaf service when we stand for the Amidah. And the answer is Kedei La'arbev Hasatan. We want to mix and confuse the prosecutor. Because Rashi says on the top, Shelo Yaskin Sheyishma Yisrael Mechavenes HaMitzvos is Mistatetin Dvar. The Satan becomes all tongue-tied, and he sees how much Klal Yisrael love the mitzvahs that they don't suffice with one round of shofar blowing; they need a second round of shofar. Tosfos offers a slightly different interpretation here. In the name of the Aruch, who in turn quotes the Yerushalmi, a pasuk in Yeshaya, Ubila hamoves lenetzach. And right afterwards it says, V'hoya bayom hahui taka b'shofar gadol. So it means that when the Satan hears the shofar gadol, he begins to think that maybe that shofar is the shofar of Ubila hamoves lenetzach. It's the harbinger of the ultimate shofar. And that means that the Satan has to be mistalik min ha'olam. So he's already shooken up when he hears the first set of shofar. When he hears the second set of shofars, he's absolutely convinced the Mashiach is around the corner. And he's got to get out of it. There asks an interesting question. The Torah says to blow once, and we blow twice. Is that not a violation of Al-Posiv? Al-Posiv says, V'yeshlomer, about 7 lines down, the Ein Shayach Al-Posiv Asiyas Mitzvah Achas Beis Piyamim. Al-Posiv means to add a new mitzvah, but not to repeat a mitzvah. Kigon Kohen, in Yevareh, in Yevarech, Chosu Yevarech, Chosu Tzibur Atzmo, he benches the tzibur twice. Onoto lulav. Person takes a lulav. Gechozev enoten. But tokea, but chozev tokea. He says that's not considered a violation of Al-Tos. Vam Rabbi Yitzchak. Kol shana she'ein tokin lav etchilasa. If we weren't able to blow the shofar at the beginning of the year, meaning on Rosh Hashana, then Miriam lav is sofa. We're going to have to blow the shofar at the end of the year as a Maria. Maria means mitochat sarah. So the fact that we did not blow shofar Hashana is a sign, an omen from heaven that we're not slated for a very good year. And perhaps Maria here, the way Rashi seems to interpret it, is an allusion to a Tainus Tzibur. We might have to be Gozer a Tainus Tzibur. Actually, that's the Ritvaz Pshat. And we're going to have to blow the shofar because we need Trua of shofars on a Tainus Tzibur. My timer, what's the reason for this? Why will the tzaras befall us? And the answer is the lo irbav Satan, because the Satan didn't hear the shofar, he wasn't confused, and therefore he gets up and he prosecutes against Am Yisrael, and therefore there's a gzeira of sorrows. Also, Dira Maskell She'ein Token B'Tchilasa quotes the Bahag, Lavdin Mikla B'Shatz. We're not talking about a case where the day of Rosh Hashana coincides with Shabbos and we don't take the shofar because of the gzeira d'Rabba, Eladis Yalid Onsa, but rather something came up, either an individual had an onus or the community had an onus. They were mitigating or circumstances that they couldn't blow the shofar. Now, the Aruch LaNer wants to know what happens to a person who, for whatever reason, but beyond his control, he couldn't blow the shofar, he couldn't hear the shofar. So he says that's going to be the next statement of Rabbi Yitzchak, which complements this statement that we just learned. Meaning the Vav here, Od, Omar Rabbi Yitzchak, Kol Shana, Sherosha b'tchilasa, b'sasheres b'sofa. There's an alternative to shofar. And what is that? I don't mean an alternative that you don't blow the shofar. I'm saying there's another possibility of achieving a great year, even if for mitigating circumstances you aren't able to blow the shofar. And that's when Klal Yisrael will make themselves into Roshim. A Rosh, Resh, Shin is an ani, a poor person. And a poor person, when he comes to knock on the door, he comes with tachnunim, with very profound and genuine feelings of petition. And that's what we have to do. On Rosh Hashanah, we have to come as Roshim, as Aniyim, to be Mavakesh b'tachnunim u'b'tfilah on our own behalf, on behalf of our families, and on behalf of the Klal Yisrael. But if we do so, then we're guaranteed that it's going to be a wealthy year. There's going to be a bracha on the year, and there'll be a lot of shefa, a lot of good things coming down, benevolence from heaven. Shenemar, we see in the Pasuk in Dvarim Yud Aleph, Merishis Hashana. And the Aleph is omitted. It's Chaser Aleph. So you read it Reshis Hashana, Ilashon Rosh, which is a poor person. And the end of the Pasuk says V'ad Achris Shana. Which means that if at the beginning of the year we are Roshim, then Besofa Yeshla Achritz Tov. And this will be the answer to the problem that we raised earlier. What do you do if you couldn't hear the shofar? A person's judged based on where he's holding now, not what he's going to do in the future. Shenemar, with regard to Yishmael, when his mother Hagar was crying, she saw him that he was thrust and he was about to die from thirst. So the Malach says to her, Malach har al tiri ki shama elokim es kol anar, and here the Torah adds 3 words, Basher hu sham, as if to say that Yishmael now is a tzaddik. And therefore, Kadosh Baruch Hu will allow him, protect him from dying, allow him to live, even though in the future his descendants will impose tzimaon, thirst, on the people of Israel. And that's the riches that you can't even imagine of Lahamitz Israel. And Yishmael was saved because Ein Adam Nidon Al Shem Sofa, but rather Basher Husham. What do we do about Ben Soar Morer? I do not know. But one question I do know, and there's an answer to this one, is the Rebbe Leo Mizrahi asks this question in his Perish al Torah. He says a few psukim before this pasuk, Shama Hashem es kol, etc., Asher Husham, it says that Sarah witnessed Yishmael Mitzachik. And the Gemara is going to tell us that Mitzachik means that he violated the 3 cardinal sins. And that pasuk comes before this pasuk, Basher Husham. So it would seem that Yishmael was not a great tzaddik at this time when he was dying from thirst in the wilderness. Says the Ra'im that when it says here that Ilu Yishmael was a tzaddik at that moment, it means it's a tzaddik from this avera of causing the Jewish people to die from thirst, which is what Yishmael is about to do. He's about to die from thirst, which is Mida Keneged Mida, but Asher Husham, right now, he was not guilty of that particular sin. But as far as other averos is concerned, he was very guilty. Spielberg's movie on the Holocaust, what was it called? Schindler's List. Do you remember the scene? I saw Schindler's List. There are a few scenes I can't get out of my head. That's true for any movie about the Holocaust. But one is when Schindler takes the hose. Do you remember that? The Jews are in the cattle cars and they're dying of starvation, and Schindler grabs a hose and he just And you see a man, it's a real pathetic scene, and he's trying to drink every single drop of water. I mean, dying from thirst, like the worst. In other words, a person thinks that he can be secure and calm about his judgment because, he's got schuyos, but you better be careful, says Rabbi Yitzchak, because there's certain things that could bring upon you a very negative judgment. The Elohim, here are the three. Kir Natui, a person goes into a dangerous place under the leaning tower of Pisa, and it could fall on you. And that's a sakana. And once a person is in sakana, they check him out very carefully up in Shamayim. Iyun tefillah. Here's a very complicated. What's wrong with iyun tefillah? I mean, a person should really try to be ma'ayin in his tefillah, in daven properly. So Rashi writes, iyun tefillah, it's about 10 lines before the end of the and he says, somech al tefillah shetehei nishmas. He says he works overtime with a kavana, and he thinks God certainly will accept his tefillah. That's iyun tefillah. And it's kind of scary because if he relies on his tefillah too much, then God again is going to check him out and see if he's worthy to receive the tefillah. Moser din al chavera. Somebody did you evil, and you come in front of ki'ilu. I don't mean literally, but figuratively, in front of the Beis Din Shalmal, and you say, this guy should be judged in a very negative way for what evil he perpetrated to me. That's not a good thing to do, because when he tries to judge another person and encourage the divine judgment, then they're going to check him out as well to see if he's right, that somebody else should be punished because of what that someone else did to him. And this requires a tremendous level of righteousness and piety to overcome the natural tendency to complain about others who did you wrong. The Omer Rebbe, here's a Girsa question, but Oven, din al chavero hu nenesh tchila. If you're going to be a Moser din and you're going to say that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, look, he deserves to be punished for what he did to me, then you yourself will be punished first. Shenemar, by Avram and Sarah, when Hagar saw that she had become pregnant from Avram, he was mezalzel in Sarah. Avram was a little bit guilty that he didn't protest. And Vatomer, sorry, she was so hurt by this. She said to Avram, Chamasi Olech. In other words, she was Moser din to Shamayim, that Hashem, and then she said, Yishpad Hashem beini uveinecha, that God should judge. Because you're hearing the bizyonos that I'm going through, and you're not saying a word. This Hagar, she's humiliating me. Uksiv, and the pasuk says, which we'll read in Hashem on Shabbos, Vatoma Sar b'kirisar b'chevron be'eretz Knav vayovo Avram l'spod l'sara v'liv kosa, meaning she died before Avram. Now that we've spoken about all the pitfalls and the zardin that could be unfavorable, we'll call it that, then we have to talk about the other side of the coin, those things that could break a bad decree. Eluhain, and what are these four? There's staka, tza'aka, shini Hashem, and shini Maisa. And it seems that these can be effective even in the middle of the year, meaning way after the Gzar Din of Rosh Hashana, as Rabbi Yitzchak will derive from Sukkot. So you see that the power of these four is that of being Korea Gzar Din. There already was a Gzar Din of Rosh Hashana, now we're holding in the middle of the year, and he's doing tzedakah and tza'aka, etc., and he'll be spared from the bad Gzar Din because it's Mekarim Gzar Dino Shalom. Staka. How do we know that Staka will destroy Exardin? B'chsiv Utstaka tatzil mimavos. Meaning, even though there was a gzera that he should die, Staka will protect him and bring his salvation. So Akka, B'chsiv, Poskin Te'ilim, Vayitzaku El Hashem Batzar Lahim. Batzar means even after the gzera was already decreed, because of Ze'aka. Shini Hashem. How do we know that Shini Hashem is Korei Gzardin? Tirsiv. And this we read a few days ago, just 2.5 days ago. Vayomer Eleim El Avram, Sarai Ishtecha Lo Tikara Lo Tikra Shma Sarai Ki Sarah Shma. Uksiv in the very next pasuk, Virachti Osa v'gam nasati mimena lecha ben. She was an akara. That was the Gzardin, but HaKadosh Baruch was Korei the Gzardin immediately after her name change. Shini Maisa is Korei Gzardin to Siv. With regard to Ninveh, it says in Yonah, Vayar Halokim Esma Seyem Uksiv Vayinochem Halokim Al Ra'ah Asher Diber Lasos Lahem Vilo Asa. So it means that because of their maisim, God declared that He would destroy them. Because Vayar Elokim is Masechet. But then it says that God changed His mind and He was Korei Gzardin. And why? Because of Shini Maisa, they did tshuva. Yesh Omrim, according to those, they should add a fifth category. Af Shini Mokom. Etc., etc. And then afterwards it says, so that's called a person being golem in coma. He exiles from his place. And Rabbi Yitzchak, who only had 4, why did he exclude Shini Makom from his list? The answer is, that case of Avraham Avinu, the Bittul Gzera was for a different reason. Not because of Korei Gzardino, but because of Schusa the Eretz Yisrael who dahanim. It was the Schus of coming to Eretz Yisrael that brought about his change. The Maharsha asks a fascinating question here. We have a Python on Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur who says, Shlosha Dvarim Karin. Right? What's the language there? Tefillah Zakra. Ma'avir Nisra. Tshuva Tefillah Tzaka. Ma'avir Nisra Gzera. There's no mention here at all of Shini Maisa, of Shini Shem, or Shini Maisa. Why were those omitted? Maybe even Shini Makom, according to one opinion. And the Maharsha basically says there are 2 categories. There's a bad situation that comes for chet, that's a gzera machmas hachet, and in such a case, you need those 3 that are mentioned by the Python, but then there's another category which has nothing to do with chet, it's just the gzera that it thought, Avraham Avinu shouldn't have children, sorry, etc., and that's where Shini Makom, Shini Shem will come to pass. On the 3 regalim, person has to come to greet his Rebbe. Shenemar, it says with regard to the Shunamis, when her child died, that child was born miraculously through the bracha of Elisha, and she wanted to go tell Elisha about it, and she asks from her husband that he should send her with a donkey, etc., Narim, so he could go to Elisha. She could go to Elisha. She didn't even tell her husband why she was going to Elisha. So her husband asked her, Madua tolecha selav hayom, lo chodesh, lo Shabbos. Bichlal, the chodesh Shabbos, he boiled all the mazel. She should have gone, lahagbil pnei rabba. Here's a long discussion with the Magen Avraham that if a woman is obligated in this mitzvah because the source is from the Shunamis, and we're going to from Paskins that a woman is obligated. There's also a long discussion here. We don't have time for this. Rabbeinu Hananel, that this entire halach depends upon the level and the complexion of the relationship between a Talmud and his Rebbe. And also might depend upon whether he lives in the same city as his Rebbe. Okay, this question about Makabel, Lahadvel Pnei Adam Baragel is a sugya unto itself. A person should go to a mikvah and be mitayr himself from Tumah for the regel. Shenemar, it says with regard to the Vela, and this is an azhara that was given to Klal Yisrael beregel, as the Brisa will explain. Tanya nami hochi. The Brisa says, I might think, you, Yisrael, Musharim al Magan Avela, that this pasuk is telling us that every last Jew has to be enjoined from having contact with the carcass of an animal because he'll contract tumah. That can't be. Talmud Loma, the pasuk says, the Torah says, to the Kohen, it's addressing it to the Kohen. B'nei Aaron Muzarim, B'nei Yisrael Eina Muzarim. I'm allowed to touch a corpse. Follow Dvarim Kal V'chomer Uma Tuma Chamura. Let's say in the case of Tumas Mes, which is a Tuma Chamura, and Kohanim Muzharim, only the Kohanim are enjoined not to come in contact with the Mes. Yisrael Eina Muzharim, they don't have any prohibition about contracting Tumah from a Mes. Is Tumah Kala, like Tumas Nevelo, Kolchin, certainly Klal Yisrael are not enjoined from being metami themselves to a dead corpse of an animal. Ella matam lo. So what does it say? B'nivlasam lo sigo. What do you mean you're not allowed to come in contact with an available regel? On the regel itself, there was an ashara that every single last Jew, no matter whether he's a Kohen or a Levi or Yisrael, is enjoined from being metami himself even a Tumah Kala because of the regel. And here we have a major machlokus. Is it because he's going to enter into the Mikdash? Or it's a separate halacha, independent halacha, that a person should be tar for the regel. And the Nachmanides Gizman has that. Omar Rav Kuspidoi, Omar Rabbi Yochanan Shloshas Farim Niftachim Rosh Hashana Echad Shal Rishon Gemurim, the Echad Shal Tzadikim Gemurim, the Echad Shal Beinanim Tzadikim Gemurim Nichtavim Nechtamim Lialta L'Chaim. God inscribes in the book of life that the Tzadikim Gemurim on Rosh Hashanah should have a year of life. Rishon Gemurim Nichtavim V'Nechtamim Lialta L'Misa. Great deal of literature on this. I mean, there are plenty of Rishonim that seem to live through the year and many years. Beinanim Tluyim V'Yomdim Mirosh Hashanah Ad Yom Kippurim and Zachu, if they do tshuva Nichtavim L'Chaim Lo Zachu. If during the 10 days between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur they didn't do tshuva, Nichtavim L'Misa. Rabbi Oven Mikra. What pasuk can indicate that there are 3 books that are open on Rosh Hashanah? And the answer is going to come from the tefillah of David regarding his enemies. And this is a kapitel called Dilim Samach Tes. Yimachu misefer Chaim v'im tzadikim al yikasevu. This is unbelievable. David HaMelech is actually praying Yimachu misefer Sifran Shal Rishon Gemurim, that his enemy should not be written down, inscribed in the book of Mason. Why not? He says, Ein l'tmoa al masha bikesh David shlo yikasvu, that his enemy should not be written down in the Sefer Shol. Shemisha nichtav b'Sefer Shal Rishon Adayin yesh lo tikva. He's still being recorded. His name is there in the Sefer Rishon. He could always get himself out of there, extricate himself by doing tshuva. If someone is not even written in the book of Rishon, is Shmo Nirkav, his name is obliterated. He has no hope. He's beyond hope. And that's what Gamaliel hoped, that the Rishon, the Oivim, should be beyond hope. Chaim, the pasuk says Chaim, Zeh Sifrin Shel Tzadikim. And then it says, V'im Tzadikim al yikasevu, Zeh Sifrin Shel Beinanim. Rav Nachman Yitzchak Omer Me'hocha. When Moshe Rabbeinu, after the Egel, asked for a mechila from Hashem to the Egel, The im ayin mecheni no misifra chasher kasofta. Erase me from your book that you've written. Mecheni no zeh sifran shel rishoyim. Misifracha zeh sifran shel tzaddik. Asher kasafta zeh sifran shel beinin. Now, what does this mean when Moshe Rabbeinu says, Mecheni no, erase me, misifran shel rishoyim? That doesn't make any sense at all. Moshe Rabbeinu b'sifran shel rishoyim. Ad kidei kach shu mevakish mecheni no misifran shel rishoyim. Ela yesh levayish lo nichtav b'din shel atzmo. Ela ula nichtav b'inyonim shel anoshim acherim shechatu kenegdo. V'gam al zeh bikei sheyimcha shmo. There are others who sinned against Moshe Rabbeinu, and in the course of recording their sins, Moshe Rabbeinu's name was mentioned, and Moshe Rabbeinu wants to erase his name even from those books. Tanya Beit Shammai Omrim Shalosh Kitos Heim Yom Adin, the three groups of people that on the day of judgment will be judged for Tchias HaMesim one way or the other. Achas shel tzadikim gmur, achas shel rishon gmur, achas shel beinin. Tzadikim gmur nechtamim v'nechtam li'alta l'chaya olam haba. At that time of Tchias HaMesim, God will inscribe the tzadikim in the books of Chaya olam haba. Rishon gmur nechtam v'nechtam li'alta l'gehenna. They will suffer Gehenna. Shenemar pasuk Daniel ve'rabim yishene admas offer yokitzu. Do the English translation here. Many of those who sleep in the dusty earth will awaken. These for everlasting life, and these for shame, or for everlasting abhorrence. So this is a reference to the Rishoyim Gemurim. Rabbi Micheni Admas offer Yakitsu Eile Chaya Olam, Eile Charofos Lidron Olam. These for everlasting life, and these for shame or for everlasting abhorrence. Beinanim Yordim LeGehenna. Notice there'll be a cleansing process for the Beinanim, and they will be cleansed in Gehenna. Umitzaftzifim the Olim, they'll be screaming out of pain, but then Olim they'll ascend. In other words, they'll cry out for pain for a short period of time, and then they'll leave Gehenna. So Gehenna is a rehabilitation for a person, so that he can merit entry into the Olam Haba. Because once the ill effects of sin have been cleansed by his stay in Gehenna, he will leave Gehenna and enter into the world to come. Shenemar, as the pasuk says. Okay, so this is a very long drasha, and I see we ran out of time, so this Bli Neder will pick up tomorrow on the top of Daf Yud Zayin. Wish everyone a great day.